Um, I make a lot of videos on specific subjects, specific events, specific news stories. Um, Not so much on philosophy in terms of thinking about things, rather than a specific event, but just thinking about things. So here's a subject I think is worth bringing about. Not debating, because that is precisely what I'm talking about, in fact, but just bringing about maybe something for people to think about, agree or disagree. It's actually about the nature of debating itself, just debating about any given subject. Obviously, I make a wide range of videos on a wide range of subjects, and I'm fairly opinionated. I mean, I put my feelings out there without sort of any shyness about it. I just do it. And I've engaged in a lot of, let's say, cyber debates, insofar as replying to negative comments, agreeing with positive comments, etc. And I think that's fine. I've always welcomed the concept of YouTube and the concept of a free internet. One of the benefits about being online is you can simply turn off the computer. But sometimes in the real world, if you're in a debate scenario, it's not that simple. You could just walk out and leave the room, but then you run the risk of being seen as, seen in a whole range of ways, rude, or lacking academic comeback, or sort of being petty, or losing. I actually think the whole idea of losing an argument is a bit childish, because who's to determine whether someone is lost or not? I mean, arguments shouldn't be about losing it, it's simply about, because I believe that some people have a very powerful ability at debating skills. It doesn't mean that they're right, it just might mean that they're better at wording things and better at getting their point across, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they are right or wrong. Obviously, in the world of politics, it's critical, because the whole concept of debates is not just for the hell of it, it's for forming legislation, and it's decisions that impact people's lives. So in politics, it is important who wins and loses an argument. But in an everyday basis, and for everyday people, it really isn't a question of who wins and loses, it's a question of opinion. And that doesn't mean that everyone has to respect everyone else's opinion. I don't agree with that either, because if you think something's wrong, then you're not going to respect a morally questionable position. But what I would like to suggest is that I've been in situations where an argument's been going on, and there's a fine line between a debate and an argument. Of course, you get arguments about more personal things, like, for example, if someone has spent someone else's money, or if someone made an accusation against another person, or whatever. Debates are more about generic subjects that aren't necessarily personal, but they can then turn personal if they get heated, which is pretty often the case, especially if it's an emotive subject. It could be something like crime, or welfare, or even in sporting contexts, which in my opinion shouldn't be heated, but they often are. People have strong opinions and they want to stand by their opinion. That's entirely human. But what I'd like to put out there is, we sort of have this idea that debating is always healthy and it's always a good thing. I believe sometimes it is best to just leave it. This isn't about freedom of expression, which I strongly support, but just common sense. I often get into, like I say, I reply and respond sometimes to negative comments, either on my own channel or things I see elsewhere, and I think that's okay. But I've seen arguments online that just go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. I've seen entire threads composed of two individuals having a go at each other, and it could be as many as 200 posts of just starts off in a debate and then it just ends up with mudslinging. And I'll be honest, there's been times when I've been angry and I have also resorted to mudslinging. Never on personal appearance. I never use appearance as a way to attack someone. I think that's petty, but I will use, sometimes I resort to the, let's say, less than diplomatic language. But my point is that whilst it's good to debate on issues, because it means you exchange ideas and you can think about other ideas, and I think that on the surface is a good thing, but I do think that there's nothing wrong with recognising that sometimes there is a limit, and sometimes the other person is simply not going to agree, and you're not going to agree, and everything that needs to be said has been said. So there's really no point of pushing it any further, because rather than changing the other person's mind, you're likely to only making them harden their own position by trying to prove a point, and you'd probably do the same. So I don't see the point of going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth just to try and feel. I think most people, very, very, very few people have an ability to be completely 100% understanding of the other person's position. Open-minded people have the ability to try and be diplomatic and try to concede some ground and recognise where the person's coming from, but almost no one that I can think of has an ability to be completely subservient to the other person's point of view, unless I agree with them, genuinely agree with them. But the point I'm making is that I think it's healthy to have debate and exchanges of ideas, but there has to come a point when people start raising their voices, when they start shouting. Who does it benefit by having that sort of heated debate? Really, who does it benefit? I know from experience that I've never particularly enjoyed heated debates. I have to be honest, I've never enjoyed it, although I've been in many. It's not that I'm not confident in my own views, I am, but I just don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy that sort of confrontation, because the concept of a polite debate is, I think, more rare than the concept or the reality of a heated debate, because if people have strong views on the subject, it's almost inevitable that it will get heated. It's not that I don't think that debates should happen. They should, especially in a democratic society. It's healthy, I think. Otherwise you just have brooding anger and no communication at all. So I suppose some communication is better than none, but I've been in debate scenarios where I've walked out of the room simply because, not necessarily me and someone else, but even listening to other people in it, I don't want to have to be involved. I've been in coffee shops where I've heard that happening. I've moved tables because it's not pleasant listening to that sort of debate or argument. It's not. I don't enjoy it at all. So I think there just needs to be times when we draw a line. Like I say, I think it's better than having two huge groups of people who have views and they're just brooding and they never ever communicate with the other side. But there are certain types of people I would not go out of my way to talk to. If I absolutely had to challenge their view, defend my own view from them, I would do it, but I'm not going to go out of my way to be in that situation because it depresses me. Yeah. So, let me know your thoughts, because this isn't about any specific subject, just about what I've mentioned, debating. Have you been in situations where you prefer to just walk away? Do you enjoy it? And if you do, please do let me know what you enjoy about it. I don't. I mean, I don't mind being in discussions about things, but there's three things: there's discussion, debate, and arguments, roughly in that order. But very often there's a red line, and one can turn into the other. I've been in situations where I've been in debates about abstract subjects and then it ends up very personal. So that's why I don't like it, because it just... in this world we all form our opinions for certain reasons. It could be the environment we're in, it could be the company we keep, it could be the news sources we use or don't use. There's a whole range of dynamics as to why we form the views that we do. That in itself is an interesting subject. But debating is a good thing, but I think there's nothing wrong with recognising that sometimes it isn't going to go anywhere and changing the subject or making a polite exit, or not so polite, or simply avoiding it in the first place is not necessarily a bad thing. You see, I've always felt, just to add another point, I've always felt almost like a moral duty to say something if people are defending the indefensible. For example, if I see someone online trying to make excuses for, just as an example, violent Islamism or torture or something else that I find morally repugnant, I feel almost instinctively that I have to say something. I'm not a world leader, I don't make big decisions, but by challenging ignorance and by challenging callousness, it just leaves a record that someone has done that, rather than the person just saying it without challenge. So I feel almost a duty to do so. Anyway, please do let me know your thoughts on this subject. Thank you.